Our next speaker is Stuart Lacey. Stuart is the Growth Director of OpenXO. OpenXO is a global community and coaching ecosystem that helps organizations implement methodologies to achieve transformative growth. Stuart, welcome.
Great to see you all and really happy to be here. What a great event so far, really impressive.
So what brings a coaching ecosystem to the world of artificial intelligence?
Well, you know, I think one of the most transformative things we found across the world is that if you are not bringing your team along on the journey, it's really hard to actually get these foundational changes made with regards to AI. And so the concept of establishing core KPIs to integrate and ensure your team is up to speed and then understanding where and how to apply use cases means that you can actually get the ROI that you want and hence become an exponential organization.
So the title of your talk is From AI Hype to Hands-on ROI, the grand finale. Are we focusing too much on the hype and not on the ROIs?
Well, you know, I would frame it for all of us the following way. If you look at 2023, without a doubt, we had a lot of hype cycles. They were the early adopters. Anyone knowing Crossing the Chasm will know that the early adoption cycle is unfortunately the place of few people, a lot of excitement. As we got into 2024, we started looking at implementation, but too many organizations were running into how do we rapidly deploy rather than focusing on core ROI. And so 24 was exploration, updating technologies, mainline implementation, and a better understanding. But I think 2025 is the opportunity for organizations to see true ROI. And so what we're doing is seeing an incredible growth level right now in organizations walking before they run, making sure that they've identified the most powerful use cases and then finding out where they apply them, in what order, and where they can generate ROI. So this is a year of real value as far as people are concerned.
Okay. Stuart, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And everyone, welcome. And I know it's been a really quick and busy afternoon thus far. And just my comment to everyone is I'm going to be working live with you today, as you've seen before. And I'm just going to share overall a number of things, but I'm just going to share my desktop. So for that purpose, I can hot swap. And really what I want to focus on today with all of you is real value. And I'd like to kind of just start by honoring a few organizations that I'm part of and working with. One of which you've heard about is OpenEXO. Now, OpenEXO is the world's elite transformation agency. One of the reasons they're really interesting is they've generated 40% higher shareholder returns, 3x better revenue growth, 11.7% higher asset utilization, and much higher profitability. And when you think about that in terms of an emergent breed of organizations, one of the foundational requirements of being an EXO is actually utilizing algorithms and AI effectively. Some of you have already worked with EXO. It's a 38,000 member global organization as well. But one of the things which is really interesting about EXO is they actually have an online survey where you can actually rank and score yourself and how you actually measure up on an exponential quotient. Now, for those of you that are interested, the QR code is there as well as a link. We might use this later on if I have time today to show you how we would take the outputs of this and put it actually into some of the engines we're using. However, if you don't do it today, certainly feel free to do this at your leisure later on, and then we can apply it as we go. So I bring EXO to the table today because of their ability to analyze your organization and provide an incredible output, which looks something like this, which you can then utilize to input into some of the models we're going to play with. So understand your organization, where the gap analysis is in order for you to be great. And you can see there's radar plot scoring and deep analysis. And so they do a phenomenal job of helping you self-assess and then gap analysis. Second organization I want to talk about quickly is Invisible. They're the world's market leader in technology-enabled services. And what they're extraordinary at is their clients include OpenEXO, they include OpenAI for the last 5 years, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, et cetera. And they have an organization called Supernal, and I'm actually going to be with them next week at the beginning of Abundance Summit, which you all know is Peter Diamandis' summit. And what they focus on is your first AI employee. And so that's really interesting. And then Clarity, another organization I work with, which I actually founded, which is Mass Enablement AI Training. And the reason I mention that is one of the things we're seeing organizations do right now, and I strongly encourage you all to consider, is to set a benchmark KPI of the number one thing is to try and establish a 75 to 80% training, AI enablement training ratio within your teams. That kind of reflects back to Marcus's question at the beginning, which is, if 2025 is a year of real value, how do we actually get there? And one of the things that I would contend and argue is that you need to be able to ensure your team is fully AI trained. And we now set those as KPIs. And that means that now you can set up squads within your company to take some of the use cases I'm about to show you and figure out how to then take them forwards so that your team is actually able to implement the changes you want to make. So a quick shout out to those companies. And what I'd like to start with is just dive into a little bit of ChatGPT 4.0 with you. And I promise to try and deliver value during this session. So this will be a real demonstration working with you. And what I'd like you to do is, all of you are able right now, if you wish, to go to this document, which I will throw into chat right now. And if you wish, you can hop over to that document. And those will be the prompts that we're going to be using live today. And while you're just going to that and pulling that up, you will note as well, I just want to make a reminder as we're working with everyone today on GPT that you should have gone into your settings on ChatGPT. Make sure that you right now have improved the model for everyone switched off. That is just in case that you do add in any of your proprietary information while I'm running live with you today. I want to just make sure that you are not sharing anything that would otherwise be a data privacy risk. So that's a reminder under data controls and settings is to just have model turned off for training. So the first thing I want to do is I want to share with you a financial analysis prompt, and we're going to be working live right now. So if I go to ChatGPT, you'll see that I'm in 4.0. We're going to play today with O3 and custom models as well, but I want you all to orient to just ChatGPT 4.0. And I want you to look at this prompt here. And the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the prompts as we go. But the most important thing in an early prompt is making sure that you follow the race or pace structure, which is R is what is the role you're taking on. In this case, I'm assigning it a data scientist and financial expert with 20 years of experience. That's the R. The A is the action. What am I trying to ask him to do? I'm asking him to analyze financial statements here. The C is the context. What are the context and limitations that I'm giving the model in order to be able to know? And then finally, it would be execute. And so what I'm going to do here is actually just grab the financial statements, which are the last quarterly financials for Bayer. And if I select those, and I just pulled them off the website, these are public, so this is no problem to play in the model. And what we're asking it to do is to take this set of financial statements and, as a data scientist, financial expert, thoroughly analyze this entire set. And then I'm asking it to actually run statistical analysis, look at opportunities to increase ROI. And this is a very interesting prompt here. Do it one by one and take permission for each step. That is a powerful tool, because what you're going to do is have the model actually check in with you as you go. And so while that is running, what I want to just quickly point out to you is, if you were, for example, to look at those financial statements, they are about 120 pages of detailed financial statements. And Bayer right now is already finding itself being analyzed by this. And so if you were to take your own financial statements, you can start to see the kind of things that you could be doing immediately within your own organization. And this is all the concept of just prompting well. And while this is running, let's pop back into the prompt structure and look at the second prompt, because now it's going to get interesting. Now I'm going to instruct it, after it's done that first set, is in preparation for an annual meeting of shareholders, I want it now to put a recommendation as to how they can maximize growth and operational efficiency with a focus on EBITDA. And then I'm going to tell it to create a ratings matrix to evaluate all of them, score them based on time required, value, feasibility, dependency, and risks, prioritize them into the top 5, and then identify a flow in which we could implement them. The reason we want to do that is, while this is working away on just doing generic steps, it may be giving me, hey, here's what we'd like to do. Would you like me to do profitability analysis? And I might just say, yes, please proceed. And it's going to work on profitability, so it's checking in. But more interesting to me is, whilst it can do all that work in the background, what am I preparing for? In this case, hypothetically, I'm about to present to a board of directors. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually do the kind of work on the financial statements that can allow me to actually present that to the board of directors. So if I were to do that, as it's working on the profitability in the background, I can put that second prompt in right here. So now you can see, oops, hang on a second, that didn't copy correctly. Let me just hop back. Do that again. So now what I'm going to ask it to do is to actually prepare for that recommendation set. And this becomes interesting because what we're asking the model to do is to actually work beyond the traditional training of it. And we're giving it specific requirements in order for it to create a ratings matrix. And for those of you that haven't used this kind of prompting before, this is a fantastic way for you to generate real immediate insights into the kinds of activities you need to take and in what order. And so when we talk about ROI in 2025, one of the most important things for you to know is, what do I do in which order? And as a result, when you actually put prompts in like create a matrix and analyze it based on a bunch of different areas, you can see now it's actually built out that matrix. It's actually scored it for me and prioritized it to allow me to then understand where do I go in what order, how do I do it? And then the other thing that's really cool, if you go back to our prompting and you look at the next prompt I've shared, this is a really powerful one because many of you ideally are looking for KPIs and actually mechanisms in order for you to achieve the goals you just set. So you can just ask it now to dive deeper into it and to actually build out key performance indicators and monitoring frameworks for every one of the things you just asked it to top and rationalize. So not only now do you have the 5 most important recommendations for Bayer to grow with regards to efficiency and EBITDA, but now it's actually building out all the KPIs and everything for that. Okay, so we've been working now for about 3-4 minutes, and maybe what is the outcome we want to take? Well, maybe what we want to do is we want to ask it to actually now summarize that into a format that would be appropriate for me to present to a board of directors. So I've actually asked it now to organize the output into a concise and compelling framework ready for me to present to a board of directors. So you're watching it work in real time. I'm doing this while I'm going with you. But the important thing is on the other tab, I've shared with you all of the prompts. And so you can either be working along with me or just do this on your own. Instead of using Bayer, put your own financial statements in. Or if you're analyzing a company and you're an investor or you're looking at maybe venture, this is an incredible way for you to do gap analysis on the kind of investing you want to make. So now what it's done is it's actually built out that entire PowerPoint deck of recommendations. And the cool thing here is you can actually obviously take this information, you can copy and paste it, and to save time, just to show you, I've already done that, and I've created a Word document which actually has the outputs of it now in a 15-page deck. And the reason we want to do that is we want to be able to take this information and export it now actually into a platform called Gamma. And so I use gamma.app as our presentation hacking tool. And so if we were to go to gamma.now, and you can find it at gamma.app, you can see it in the top corner and just take a note of that or screenshot it. We can now go in and we can actually create with AI, and I'm going to import a file or URL. I'm going to generate or paste in text. Now, if I want to import a file here, I can upload now a file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that Bayer Gamma output I just created. It's going to attach into Gamma. And now Gamma has the benefit of the outputs of Bayer that I just created up here. And what Gamma can do now, if I want to create a presentation, a web page, or even, documentary evidence, in this case, a presentation, if you work along and just watch, you see what Gamma is going to do is now I'm asking it to preserve the content, split it up for me into the correct amount of cards or slides. And what it's going to do is take this content, break it out into the appropriate slides. And then if we hit continue, we can now go and generate an entire website or marketing opportunity. In this case, we're going to generate a presentation. So I like this theme, and I'm going to hit generate. And all we've done now is we've analyzed Bayer. We've created a sequenced prioritization for a growth strategy for the company. We've summarized it into a board-ready document. And then here is Gamma building that in real time for us. And so now, for example, you're building out an impressive, powerful analysis document, which could actually be presented at a board. Now, the cool thing about Gamma is as it's building this, it's actually creating its own imagery. It's creating structure. It's putting in a format that can be analyzed. It's taking all of the documentary evidence that we've created. and it's putting it in a format that can be presented out. So no longer do you need to actually create your own PowerPoints. You can actually do it all here. And just as a quick example of what I did is you can actually now share this by driving it to a website, and you can publish it. And when you publish it, this is what you'd end up with. So now you actually have this entire PowerPoint online, ready to go, as though you actually just share the link or actually share this entire page with the board. And so this is an example of literally in about 5-6 minutes of how you can actually turn a set of financial statements into a board level set of recommendations. And for those of you that want to do this on your own or look at these files later on, you'll see just how interesting but accurate and how powerful this organizes your information and recommendations. So that's just a quick run through there of a stage that we took, which started with GPT. And all we did as a summary is we assigned what was called the race format: role, action, context, execute. We attached one document, in this case, quarterly statements. We gave it a job to do. And after it was done that job, we then asked it to do a little bit of additional analysis by creating a matrix and ranking. So it weighted our solutions. Once weighting it, we put it into a board structure. We exported to Gamma. Gamma built it, and we published it. That's all that we did. And those are the kinds of velocity that we want you to be thinking about. And this is why, even if you know what you're doing as CEO, the question is, can your team follow on? And hence why the reason is you want to make sure that your team understands how to use these kinds of tools the way that I just did live with you. All right. So we got a little bit of a feel there of what it looks like to use advanced prompting for financial analysis. Let's have a quick peek at PowerPoints in seconds. We just did that. So now chain of thought. And many of you have been playing now on GPT, and I want you to now look at, if we create a new GPT, but go to O3 Mini, the model here. Now we're accessing chain of thought, and this is a deep reasoning model that sits on top of the typical large language model of GPT, and it allows effectively like a team of PhDs to co-create with you and do work on the analysis prior to actually having the model work on your behalf. So if we go back to our prompting here and we look at chain of thought, I'm going to give you another prompt here on chain of thought, and it's right there in the document for you, but let's look. And in this case, I took an example of me here being of service to you. I'm an AI consultant helping a gathering of members of EO. You can access information on EO by looking at that link. The opportunity to me as an AI advisor is to look at the largest single opportunities and use cases available for a typical EO leader. And then I want them to prioritize these again: financial analysis, cost benefit, incorporating risk and privacy concerns, considering time and investment required to bring these use cases live, and then associate KPIs and focus on the top 10. In this case, you will see it's actually starting a reasoning engine down below. It's not going straight to the model, it's thinking. And so O3 Mini, along with deep research under Gemini, is actually doing a set of reasoning work in the background. And what the reasoning is trying to figure out the smartest pathway to the outcome that you want before it enacts with the model. And the really exciting thing about chain of thought models is that as we see more and more of them coming out this year, you're going to find that you're going to be hot swapping between 4.0 type regular interactions and then the deep reasoning or chain of thought type models, because the amount of value that you can get is much more research-based when you go with chain of thought. And as a result, now you can quickly see here on the screen, it's already done the kind of work that we would want it to do to look at analyzing which use cases would you possibly want to do and in what order. Now, obviously, if this was you doing it for your own company, up here, you would not give the EO organization, you would put your own website in, or you might link it to one of your documents. And as a result, it would be able to reach out and do research and custom work on figuring out the top AI use cases specifically for your company based on its awareness and knowledge. But remember here, we're working on the open internet, meaning that we're working on the open model. And there's a limit to the amount of value that we can create when we're doing that, because although this is very impressive, and I recommend you do it, and you can look at implementation, strategy, and timing and recommendations, we still haven't given it the immediacy of context, which is going to take it to a significant next level of personalization. And as we've heard today about RAG and agent, it's really important as we progress in the kind of work that we're doing with these models that we actually understand which part of which model to use at which time. And so that was chain of thought and a quick chat there. So now we actually want to look at training your own custom GPT advisor, because one of the things that many people say is, wouldn't it be great if I had a kind of an AI advisor that I could talk to and talk with through all the kind of challenges and opportunities that I'm trying to find? And so in this case, all you would simply do is you would go into GPT and down here, explore GPTs. And in the area of custom GPTs here, which is, kind of like an app store, you would go to create. And in create now, you've got the ability to create and configure your own GPT. And under the configure area here, you could create, for example, this could be my guru, if you want to call it that. And in the instructions area here, I'm going to invite you to go back here to a really interesting GPT prompt. And this is courtesy of some friends at CEO Coaching, but I want you to now look at this prompt here, and it's fairly impressive and quite long. There it is. And I'm going to copy that into my custom GPT. So now you can see what I'm doing is I'm giving it a prompt, which is basically saying, what I want you to do is create a strategic advisor for my company that delivers C-suite caliber analysis and work. And all you would do is you would go in here and hot swap company name with your own company. And so if you were ABC Technologies, you could just search and replace, put ABC Technologies in here in the search and replace. And then what you're doing by codifying this GPT is effectively you're going to give it instructions as to now to become your advisor. Okay. And then you could actually attach files. And so if you had files about your company, you could attach them, and you could actually now go into the create side and say, please take next step. And what's going to happen is it's going to start thinking about the smart assessment framework, and it's going to start taking this configuration here that you've put into it and actually build out a custom GPT for you. And so, for example, what you're doing here is by training with a very, very extensive kind of prompt, you're building effectively your own AI advisor for the company. And by loading in whatever files you want to attach, financial, board, deck, pitch, annual review, HR, organizational strategy, whatever, you can then start asking your GPT guru questions about your organization, such as, what do you think if I wanted to do that? What do you think about if I had $1 million of fresh investment money? How might I best apply it across my organization? And this prompt actually confers a structural knowledge base into a custom GPT in order for it to be effectively your own AI advisor. And so if we had time, I'd actually run that with you. But because we're limited for time today, I'm actually not going to kind of fire that guru up for you. But I want you to be able to do that on your own. And so that starts right here at custom GPT as advisor prompt. And again, all you need to do, paste in your own name of your company, take this full prompt, paste it into the instructions for a GPT. And once you've uploaded that and attached your own files, it effectively will build your own AI strategic advisor. So the reason that is fascinating to me is as we look through the kind of the domain levels of what GPT alone as a model can provide, is we know that we can use it in the 4.0 functionality, but we just need to know how to prompt it well and what to attach. And we did that. We then need to know, it's great to do that work, but how do we output it in a way that we can utilize it for our teams, our customers, our boards, and recommendations, and we use Gamma to output that. And as an example, there is in our company right now, anytime we do a sales deck for any client, we customize it in GPT, drive it to Gamma, and actually send them their own custom deck for each and every client, because now we can do it in seconds. And as a result, they feel a very personal touch of having a custom built deck that actually embedded understanding from GPT of their business and the use case within it. So that's a really interesting way to do customization. On top of that, we talked about chain of thought on 3.0 mini and the value that we can drive from 3.0 mini. And then the other thing that we looked at is custom GPT advisors. And so very quickly, we're trying to figure out these are the big levels of value that we can do. And finally, for those of you that aren't using Notebook LM right now, I just want to quickly give you a view on that. But Notebook LM is an amazing product. But if you actually don't know a lot about what's happening in the world of LLMs, this YouTube video here by Andre Karpathy, and I'm going to put that link right now into the chat for you. And there it is. This is probably one of the best videos on the internet to help you understand exactly how these LLMs work. And so I recommend you to listen to it in detail, but it is 3 hours and 31 minutes long. It came out just a few weeks ago, but it's probably the reference source of knowledge now for you to train and learn how do all these things work. But I want to imagine for a minute, you don't have 3 hours and 31 minutes to actually watch it. And so what we do then is we take that URL and we go to Notebook LM, and I just pasted that into Notebook LM, which is Google's kind of summarization module. And what's really interesting about it is it trains immediately on that piece of knowledge, the entire YouTube, and it does two things for me in real time. One thing it does for me is it creates an incredible summary of that entire document. And so rather than have to watch the whole thing or read it, this is the example of you creating a summarized perfect document. And it builds it out as a podcast. And here's the podcast.
Okay, so let's dive into this world of large language models, LLMs. You sent over a ton of stuff about how they work, especially ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It seems like you really want to kind of look under the hood and see the nuts and bolts, not just the magic. So instead of just like a step-by-step.
What's amazing about that is it's taking 3 hours and 31 minutes of content and then converting into a live and real-time podcast. Now, many of you are going to be using that to say, well, now I can summarize large amounts of information in my organization. I can take huge amounts of information, policies, frameworks, updates, information from legal. I can effectively podcast it, pop it in my ear and listen to it, or listen to it in the car on the way to work. But where we're seeing a ton of people do it is actually this is foundationally changing how kids learn at school. And so if your child is trying to get through a really large English language book or anything else, the powerful opportunity there is you can actually have them listen to podcasts now on the kind of subjects that they're learning on in school. So this is probably one of the #1 tools that you might learn and apply in business, but you're going to take home and fundamentally change the way in which your children are actually also using these tools to simplify the way in which they're learning information to try and get through college or high school, whatever. And so Notebook LM is one of these great tools that isn't just a business tool, but it's a personal tool in life. Marcus, I'm going to pause there just for a second, check in back with you, make sure if there's any questions you wanted to ask or the audience wants to ask before we continue it any further.
Well, I do have, basically I have two questions. One remark on Notebook LLM. So my kids are using it heavily, and it's helping them to study and help them to summarize their books and their lectures, and they can create flip cards just to practice. That's a very good thing. The other thing is, and that's a problem that I have with Gamma AI and the automation of PowerPoints, it's just missing the point for my presentations. How can I improve my prompts that I create PowerPoint slides or camera slides that support my talk?
Yeah. So it's a great question, Marcus. And you and I spoke as we were preparing for today that one of the things that we do separately is we run 2 and 3 hour deep dives in like mastering prompting. And there's actually been a lot of demand to actually maybe run a workshop after this to actually really upscale you. And so we run masterclasses in prompting. And I think the reason you're going to see such a difference in output is by the quality of the input of the prompting. And so what everyone who's really interested in trying to get the specificity of the outcome that they want, whether Gamma or Notebook or whatever, it's not actually the output that is difficult. It's actually the prompting that you need to be better at. And so the secret of that is mastering prompting. And I actually think it's about a 2 hour session most people need in order to be able to upskill their prompting 10x. And we run workshops on that. And I think it's really valuable for your entire team to go through that, because these tools are only as good as how you prompt them.
Well, thanks for your presentation. And indeed, we are scheduling a follow-up session with Stuart in the coming weeks, so you can sign up for that. We'll post the links and the information on the event website and also on the YO website. So stay tuned, and we invite Stuart back to host another session to get real practice experience in how to run ChatGPTs and LLMs and other LLMs that are available. Thank you.
Great. And I'd love to collaborate further with you. And thank you for having me today. Great event. We really appreciate the effort you put in. Congratulations.
Then our next speaker is for Lewis.